The news just dropped, and it is an absolute bombshell for every senior in America because the rules for your money are changing. A massive Social Security shakeup is officially hitting on May 1st, and it changes everything about how you receive and protect your benefits. This is not some distant political debate or a slow-moving study that might happen years from now. This is a hard deadline that could hit your bank account in a matter of weeks if you are not prepared for the shift. Most people are completely in the dark about how these new agency rules actually work in the real world. If you rely on that monthly check to pay for your groceries, your medicine, or your mortgage, you are in the line of fire. The Social Security Administration has just finalized a series of major changes that fundamentally alter the way they calculate and distribute payments. This is a classic case of the government moving the goalposts right as you are trying to plan your future. Many people assume their benefits are locked in and untouchable, but that is a dangerous myth that could cost you thousands of dollars. We are talking about new rules for reporting, new ways they track your outside income, and a massive shift in how they handle overpayments. You need to understand these rules now before you find yourself caught in a web of government red tape that stops your checks entirely. This is the kind of high-stakes legal and financial shift that most news networks just gloss over until it is too late for the average person. If you care about your financial freedom and you want the truth without all the political noise, you need to hit subscribe right now. This community is for people who refuse to be blindsided by fast-moving changes to their rights and their hard-earned money. We stay ahead of the curve so you can stay informed and stay protected while everyone else is still trying to figure out what happened. The core of this May 1st shakeup involves a major policy shift within the Social Security Administration regarding the Supplemental Security Income Program and broader retirement benefits. For years, the agency has used a complex system of rules to decide exactly how much you are entitled to based on your living situation. One of the biggest changes involves something called in-kind support and maintenance, which is a fancy way of saying help you get from family. If someone helps you with rent or food, the government has historically used that as an excuse to cut your monthly check. This new rule change is supposed to simplify that, but it creates a whole new set of traps for the unwary. If you are a retiree who receives a little bit of help from your kids or a friend, the way you report that help is about to change. The agency is moving toward a more automated system, which sounds good on paper, but it means they are watching your accounts more closely. This shift is part of a larger push by the Social Security Administration in 2024 and 2025 to modernize their oversight and reduce what they call improper payments. They are using new data sharing agreements with banks and other agencies to track your financial life in real time. This means if your balance goes up by even a small amount, the system might flag you for an audit or a suspension. Think of this new system like a high-tech traffic camera that has been installed on a road you have driven your whole life. You used to know where the police sat and how to stay safe, but now the rules are being enforced by a computer that doesn't care about your excuses. If you cross a line you didn't even know existed, a letter will show up in your mailbox telling you that you owe the government money. These letters are often terrifying and give you very little time to fight back before they start taking money out of your future checks. This is why we have to dig into the fine print of these May 1st changes before the clock runs out. Now that the agency has officially confirmed these dates, we are seeing a lot of confusion and a lot of very worried people. I want to hear from you in the comments right now about how you feel about the government tracking your bank accounts more closely. Do you think this is about stopping fraud, or is it just another way to squeeze seniors who are already struggling with high prices? Your voice matters in this conversation because you are the ones who have to live with these decisions every single day. If you find this breakdown helpful, go ahead and give it a like so more people can find this information before the May deadline. The bigger issue here is that these changes are happening at the same time as a massive crackdown on what the agency calls overpayments. An overpayment is when the government sends you too much money by mistake and then demands that you pay every single penny back immediately. Under the old rules, they could take your entire check until the debt was paid, leaving many seniors with absolutely nothing to live on. The May 1st shakeup includes some new protections that limit how much they can take, but the rules for how you qualify for those protections are very strict. You have to prove that the mistake was not your fault and that paying it back would cause you extreme hardship. Here's the part that most people are missing. The burden of proof is almost entirely on you, not the government. If the Social Security Administration makes a mistake and sends you an extra $100, they can still come after you years later for that money. Even with the new limits on how much they can take at once, they are still going to get their money eventually. This is like a bank accidentally putting money in your account and then suing you for it 3 years after you already spent it on rent. It is a legal nightmare that is currently affecting hundreds of thousands of Americans across the country. What does this mean for you in your daily life starting next month? If you are a retiree who keeps a small amount of savings for emergencies, you need to be extremely careful about your account balances. If you are on SSI, the asset limit is still incredibly low, and these new tracking rules mean the government will know the moment you go over. For those on standard Social Security retirement, the risk is more about how your outside income is reported and calculated. If you take a part-time job or sell a piece of property, the window for reporting that information has become much tighter. A simple delay in paperwork could lead to a sudden stop in your payments that takes months to resolve. Let's look at a real-life scenario that could happen to any of us under these new rules. Imagine a woman named Margaret who receives Social Security and lives in a small apartment. Her son helps her out by paying her phone bill and occasionally buying her a few bags of groceries when things are tight. Under the old rules, Margaret might have been afraid to report that help because she didn't want her check to be cut. With the May 1 change, some of that help is now ignored by the government, which sounds like a win for Margaret. But the trap is that she still has to report the help, and if she doesn't, she could be flagged for hiding income. The risk here is that the government is encouraging more reporting while also increasing their ability to punish people for small errors. If Margaret forgets to mention that her son also gave her $50 for a birthday gift, the new automated system might see that deposit in her bank account. Suddenly, she is getting a letter in the mail accusing her of fraud and demanding a full accounting of every dollar she has received in the last year. This is not just a hypothetical story, this is the reality of how these agencies operate when they are under pressure to find savings. You have to be perfect in your record keeping because the government certainly isn't going to be perfect in theirs. Consider another scenario involving a man named Robert who decided to take a small part-time job to help cover the rising cost of eggs and gas. Robert knows there is a limit on how much he can earn before his Social Security is impacted, and he stays well under that limit. However, the new May 1st rules change how the agency calculates his monthly earnings versus his yearly total. If Robert gets a small bonus 1 month, it could trigger a suspension of his benefits even if his total yearly income is still safe. He then has to spend hours on hold with the agency trying to explain the math to a worker who is following a computer program. This is where the next big fight starts, because these rules are not just about math. They are about how the government treats the people it is supposed to serve. We are seeing more and more legal challenges in federal courts over how the Social Security Administration handles these disputes. There are cases right now moving through the system that argue the agency is violating the due process rights of seniors. Due process is a fancy legal term that means the government has to follow fair rules before they take something away from you. If they cut your check without a proper hearing or a clear explanation, they might be breaking the law. The part that should worry you the most is that many of these changes are being rolled out through agency policy rather than new laws passed by Congress. This means they can change the rules again whenever they feel like it without a public debate or a vote that you can track. It makes the entire system feel unstable, like you are building a house on shifting sand instead of a solid foundation. This is why you need to stay tuned, because there is an even bigger hidden consequence to these rules that we are going to talk about in just a second. If you want to make sure you are always the first to know when the rules change again, make sure you are subscribed and your notifications are on. One of the biggest hidden traps in the May 1 shakeup is how it affects people who are still waiting for their disability claims to be approved. The new rules for reporting income and assets will also apply to them, making it even harder to survive during the 2-year waiting period. If you are in that situation, you are essentially trapped between a rock and a hard place with no way to pay your bills. The agency is trying to clear their backlog, but they are doing it by creating more hurdles for the people who are the most vulnerable. It is a cold and calculated move that puts the needs of the bureaucracy ahead of the needs of the individual. Think of it like a game of musical chairs where the government keeps taking away chairs, but telling you the game is getting easier. They say they are modernizing the system, but for many people it feels like they are just making it harder to get the money they were promised. This is why it is so important to have a clear plan for your finances that doesn't rely entirely on the government being fair. You need to have your own records, your own bank statements, and a clear understanding of your rights under the law. Knowledge is your best defense against an agency that has billions of dollars and thousands of lawyers on its side. There are also a lot of myths floating around social media right now about a massive bonus check coming on May 1st. You might have seen headlines claiming that everyone is getting a $2,000 increase because of these new rules. I am here to tell you that this is 100% false, and it is a dangerous lie that could lead you to spend money you don't have. These changes are about the rules and the math, not about a giant new pile of money being handed out to everyone. If someone tells you that you are getting a huge raise without any strings attached, they are probably trying to scam you or get clicks. Another common myth is that the government is going to start seizing people's homes if they owe money to Social Security. While the agency is getting more aggressive about overpayments, they generally do not go after your primary residence for a Social Security debt. They are much more likely to garnish your future checks or take your tax refunds until the balance is paid off. However, that doesn't mean your home is completely safe if you are forced into bankruptcy because your checks were cut off. The secondary effects of these rule changes can be just as devastating as a direct seizure of your property. You have to look at the whole picture, not just the immediate threat. A third myth is that you can just ignore the letters from the Social Security Administration and they will eventually go away. This is the biggest mistake you can possibly make because the government has a very long memory when it comes to money. If you don't respond to a notice of overpayment or a request for information, they will eventually stop your payments entirely. Once your payments are stopped, it can take 6 months or more to get them started again, even if you were in the right. You have to engage with the system, even if it is frustrating and feels unfair, to protect your stream of income. So here is what this all boils down to for you and your family as we head toward this May 1st deadline. First, the rules for how you report help from family and outside income are changing, and the government is watching more closely than ever. Second, the crackdown on overpayments is real, and while there are new limits on how much they can take, the debt never truly goes away. Third, you cannot trust the headlines about bonus checks or free money because the reality is a lot more complicated and a lot more risky. You have to be your own advocate and keep your own records to make sure the government's math matches your reality. This matters because your retirement should be a time of peace and security, not a time of fear and legal battles. You worked your whole life and paid into this system with the promise that it would be there for you when you needed it most. When the rules change without warning, it feels like a betrayal of that promise and a threat to your very survival. By staying informed and understanding the fine print, you are taking back some of that control and making sure you aren't an easy target. You are part of a community of people who value the truth and who are willing to do the work to stay ahead of the curve. This is where the movement for transparency and fairness in our government agencies really starts to gain momentum. We are not just talking about numbers on a screen, we are talking about the dignity and the safety of our seniors. When you share this information and talk to your friends and neighbors about it, you are helping to build a wall of protection around your community. The more people who know the truth, the harder it is for the bureaucracy to push us around with confusing rules and sudden changes. We are standing up for the idea that the people who paid into the system deserve to be treated with respect and clarity. As we move forward into May and beyond, I will be right here with you to break down every new development and every new court ruling. We are going to keep a close eye on how these rules are actually being enforced in the real world, not just how they look on a government website. If the agency starts overstepping its bounds, we are going to call it out and show you how to fight back. This is a journey we are taking together, and your support is what makes this work possible for all of us. Stay sharp, stay vigilant, and don't let the noise distract you from the facts that actually affect your life. To wrap this up, remember the 3 most important things you need to do right now to prepare for May 1. First, check your bank balances and make sure you aren't hovering near any asset limits that could trigger a red flag in the new automated system. Second, gather your records for any outside help or income you have received this year so you are ready to report it accurately. Third, don't panic, but stay alert for any letters from the Social Security Administration and respond to them immediately. Taking these small steps now can prevent a massive headache and a financial crisis later this year. This is about more than just money. It is about your peace of mind and your ability to live your life on your own terms. You deserve to know exactly what is happening with your benefits and why the rules are changing in the first place. My goal is to make sure you have the tools and the information you need to navigate this system with confidence and strength. We are not going to let the shake-up shake your financial foundation if we can help it. Stay informed, stay prepared, and remember that you have a community behind you every step of the way. If you want to keep getting these deep dive updates on the legal and financial changes that hit your life the hardest, make sure you are subscribed. This is a mission to keep Americans informed and ready for whatever the government throws at us next. Also, don't forget to leave a comment below about how these Social Security changes are affecting your planning for the rest of the year. We learn a lot from your stories, and it helps us know which topics to cover next to give you the most value. Thank you for being part of this, and I will see you in the next one.